I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpm.fm to discover more.
It's Susan Blackwell from The Spark File, your one-stop shop for creativity, and we have got a question for you. Are you ready to experience the most creative time of your life? If you answered hell's yes, Susan, well, get excited because we are thrilled to announce that the doors are open for the new Spark File Creative Community. For years, we've been hearing from creatives like yourself who long for creative support and community, but they don't have the time or resources to invest in a longer form course with us. Today, we're excited to announce we've heard you and answered your call, and the doors are now open for the SparkFile Creative Community, a space where you can gently prioritize your creative work, meet other kick-ass creatives, and cultivate a consistent creative practice. With Sparkish daily prompts, weekly creativity labs, and monthly coaching sessions, you'll experience real creative consistency and momentum. You know, around the SparkFile, we've always said, smart creatives don't go it alone. Having the right group of people around us can provide a reason to show up for ourselves and our creativity. Visit thesparkfile.com to learn more about the SparkFile Creative Community. Take advantage of low introductory pricing and enjoy a free 14-day trial. That's right. You can try the SparkFile Creative Community for free. Visit thesparkfile.com now. We cannot wait for you to join the SparkFile Creative Community and enjoy the most creative time of your life.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
The SparkFile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, where we believe that everyone is creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone.
I'm Laura Camian.
And I am Susan Blackwell, and we are creativity coaches who help people clarify and accomplish their creative goals.
Know that just by listening to this podcast, you are joining a warm and wonderful clan of creatives.
But hold up. You may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File?
A Spark File is a place where you consistently collect all of your inspirations and your fascinations. Every episode, we're going to reach into our very own Spark Files and exchange some sparks. And from time to time, we may even talk to some human beings who spark us too.
And your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to take some of these sparks of inspiration and make something of your own. So without further ado, let's open up the Spark File.
Hey, did you hear they're doing a remake of the X-Files?
No.
Oh, I did. And I'm very, very excited and intrigued. Although it is hard to imagine who's going to capture that hot chemistry between Mulder and Scully.
Were you a big X-Files fan when it was on?
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Oh.
Yes, I was. You didn't know this about me.
I didn't.
We're still learning about each other.
After all these years. Hey, do you remember Bree Sharp's David Duchovny, Why Don't You Love Me song?
Oh, God.
That?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do.
Yeah.
I sure do. David Duchovny, Why Don't You Love Me?
So
Of
good.
course, I think we found that David Duchovny loved a lot of people, and we might have dodged a bullet with him not loving us. I think I'm okay with it now.
I had no idea. Feel very out of touch since I did my dopamine reset, and I haven't been on social media.
Oh.
And I'm okay with it.
But where are you getting your news, though?
The New York Times.
And the Times hasn't covered this. Interesting. Okay.
Or if they have, I haven't dipped into it.
All right. Well, I will keep you posted then.
I did see a piece of cultural excitement that it was just announced yesterday that Jonathan Groff is going to be playing Rosalind on the West End in a production of As You Like It. I have on my list to do today. I want to reach out to him because that was a very formative role that I played when I was a younger person. And I'm so excited that he's playing it because I love that. I love that role. I love that play.
Oh my God. What if you could record that conversation? You guys just talking about the role of Rosalind. I would love it. I want to be a fly on the wall. And you know that I have been like, gosh, dang it. I want to get back to London. I wanted to go last year to see Philip's show because we had a client. I don't know if we told you all, but we had a client who debuted a show off West End and I wasn't able to make it. And I am just determined. I think this year I'm like, I really need to go to London.
Yeah.
So all I'm looking for is the reason
for the season.
Now, you may not have seen this. I don't know if this qualifies as a huge cultural moment, but I saw some footage from the London production of Hunger Games on stage. And goddamn, if that doesn't look incredible.
You know what I think looks incredible is that little Paddington on stage in London. Have you seen that little sweet little Paddington?
All right. A trip to London must be planned.
I love it. I love it for both of us. And you know what else I love? A little bit of podcasting.
You want a little spark?
I would love a spark.
Well, I am ready to share a spark with you today, Suze. But before I do, I think I would like to share an observation. You know, when we first started to imagine this podcast and how we wanted to work and what we wanted to do, one of the things that I recall us clearly saying is that we wanted to establish a framework for our own continual learning and our own continual seeking of inspiration at all times.
Absolutely.
It's like we wanted it to be like built in to the fabric of our lives, that we would move through the world with our eyes open, with our hearts open, looking for ideas and concepts, people, projects that moved us or excited us or just in general made us feel alive.
Yeah.
We have to do it to find sparks for the podcast, but even more importantly, we wanted to train ourselves to do it as a way of life. And, you know, spoiler, we have. I just want to say I continue to be really grateful for it because I guess especially when, to be completely transparent, like when I feel depleted, when I feel overwhelmed or I feel sad, like I feel sad right now about things on the micro level. I feel sad about things on the macro level. I just feel really sad. And I don't want today's spark to feel pathetically sad. It's not. It isn't, I promise. But it is tender. And it's a little bit bittersweet. So I'm going to proceed with caution. All right. My journey of today's spark began with an email. Earlier this week, we received a note from a former client who has taken our Blaze course, Samantha Johnson.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for this email. And in this email, Sam wrote, "It's been almost 3 years since I participated in the Blaze cohort, January 2023, and I can't believe it. My last day at my full-time job will be March 3rd, 2026. I am leaving to pursue my coaching practice full-time, and it is a big moment. When I joined that company 7 years ago, I told myself this will be the last job I ever have. I just didn't know of what. Participating in the SparkFile course was a pivotal moment in me finding my way. It was because of that community that I was finally able to admit what I really wanted, that I wanted to be a coach. And today I am."
Can we take a second? Sam Johnson
Yes,
is such a
Sam.
beautiful writer. And Sam Johnson gives you great email.
She gives good email.
Like just the best.
Susan, I am going to share repeatedly several times. I'm going to tap back into that email. So everybody, you're going to have a sense of what a great email Sam sends. But I want to pause and just say thank you. Like, thank you to Sam for writing us, taking the time to do that. You know, all of us have those moments of like, oh, I'm so grateful for this and that. And it's another step to take, like, fully craft a beautiful, thoughtful, resourceful email like Sam does.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, it really brings me joy to know that what we do at the Spark File has made such a difference. Because again, have I mentioned I am feeling sad? I'm feeling sad. But sometimes it just helps to, like, be reminded of our purpose and that the things that we choose to do with our life matter. And now Sam is using her time on earth to make a difference for other people as well. And then the gifts just keep on gifting. You know what I mean? It's incredible to watch. So I was grateful to receive this letter. But in this letter, Sam also mentioned something else. Sam mentioned ambiguous grief. I've been a little bit fascinated with the idea of ambiguous grief for several years now. And more recently, I've been feeling it for a variety of reasons. So I thought it might be a perfect time to dig into it and see how it might spark other people as well. So, by definition, ambiguous grief or ambiguous loss is a profoundly stressful type of grief without closure. It occurs when a loved one is either physically absent but psychologically present, or physically present but psychologically absent.
What does that mean, physically absent but psychologically present? What does that mean?
Well, we're going to get into it. I'm going to give you some examples. But in that case, physically present but psychologically absent might be someone being diagnosed with dementia.
Yeah.
So they are here with me, but they are not here.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah.
And that sort of here but not here, or gone but not for sure state of being kind of creates this persistent confusion and anxiety and this mental tug of war between holding on to hope and accepting the loss.
Yeah.
So just in more detail, ambiguous grief can be experienced when a loved one has gone missing. For example, soldiers who are missing in action, people who are missing with no explanation. The family doesn't know whether they should grieve for sure or fight harder to find answers. They know their person isn't here, but they have no certainty. It can apply to losing a person to dementia, as we said, where the person is physically present, but also no longer here. But here's where it gets interesting. Ambiguous grief and loss can also be felt with the death of a dream, a friendship, a marriage, a long-held belief. And I'm going to get into even a few more examples that have kind of come into our cultural consciousness in the last, 5 years or so. So I'll get into that as we go. Sam wrote in her letter, ambiguous grief is the reason why I want to be a coach. I know the acute pain of having a dream in your heart that you you yearn to make real, and the agony of being stuck, paralyzed by the fear of failing, or simply too scared to admit it and still wanting it. And I have to say, same, Sam, same. Not only do I want to avoid feeling loss regarding dreams I have for myself, I want to help others push through whatever is between them and their wildest creative dreams. So we're going to dig further into ambiguous grief. Let's see if we can wrap our arms around this baby. Who knows, maybe feel a little bit better having talked about it. So in regard to grief, most of us have heard the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. A few years back, I also did a spark on the podcast about the 6th stage of grief that they have added, which is meaning making. And I personally think that's an essential step in the healing process. Like, what meaning can we make out of this loss? it can be helpful to know those stages of grief, to be aware, but that model implies something kind of linear about grief, like it's a progression, as if grief is a journey with a finish line, like you'll arrive eventually at a destination called healed or I'm over it. But what if it's not a journey? Sam also shared in her email a talk that John Owuchekwa gave about grief. And he said, rather than look at grief like a journey we hope to complete, what if we looked at it as a language we hope to learn? I mean, I suspect nobody really wants to become fluent in grief, but learning the language does allow us to connect with ourselves and each other in deep and meaningful ways, even when the grief is ambiguous. In his talk, John says that grief might actually be the official language of humanity. When somebody dies, physically dies, there are rituals, there are funerals, there are casseroles, there are phrases like, I'm so sorry for your loss, which are, by the way, very insufficient. We'll talk about that. But at least the rituals are there. Ambiguous loss can feel like a death with no funeral, no official rituals, and yet our bodies respond the same way. We're in pain, tears are shed physically and emotionally. We are responding in the same way, but typically the difference is that those around us don't understand it, and collectively we don't have ways to acknowledge it. So the term ambiguous loss was coined by a family therapist and researcher named Pauline Boss. And yeah, she's a boss. I was like, Pauline, thank you for this work. Her discovery did not happen in a flash of inspiration. It happened through years of sitting with families in limbo. In the 1970s, as a doctoral student studying families and child development, she began noticing a pattern. Some families were grieving, but nobody had died. She studied families where a father was physically present, but psychologically absent, emotionally unavailable or checked out. She studied wives of fighter pilots missing in action during the Vietnam War. Those husbands were physically absent, but psychologically very present.
Got it.
No body, no confirmation, no closure. In both situations, families lived in a strange in-between. Are they gone? Are they coming back? Who am I now in relation to them?
Excruciating.
How can I move on? Should I move on? What does it mean if I move on? So Boss realized that these families were experiencing a loss that had no clear edges. It wasn't clean. It wasn't final. It was ambiguous. So she named it ambiguous loss or ambiguous grief, a loss without clear resolution, without certainty, a loss that blocks our ability to make meaning because we don't know what happened.
Yeah.
And this is the key. When meaning is blocked, that phase where we can make meaning out of this pain, our grief gets frozen. Like we get stuck in chronic uncertainty. Our attachment systems stay activated. Our threat systems stay activated. We don't know whether to hold on or let go. We don't know who we are in relation to this anymore. So as I mentioned, ambiguous loss can take many forms. A partner with dementia, physically here, psychologically gone. An addiction that transforms someone you love into someone you no longer recognize. I'm going to add here, and I think a lot of families and people experience this recently, a cult or a political belief system that transforms someone you love into someone you don't recognize.
Wow.
A divorce that leaves the person alive, but the relationship dead. A child you gave up for adoption. A missing person. Immigration that separates families across oceans or across where we don't know because the person is torn away from us and we don't know what's happening to them. Infertility, the loss of a pregnancy, a friendship that ended, a love bombing followed by discarding, a dream that never got to live, or this one is tough, the death of a future you thought you would have, a career path, a version of yourself you assumed you would become. I think about a generation of people whose dreams got deferred or set aside entirely because of the pandemic. Like, we know people who were about to make their Broadway debut when the world shut down. Yeah. We know people who were about to move to New York City or Los Angeles or wherever they wanted to go, or had just gotten their dream job, but the world shut down.
Yep.
I'm even going to add the death of the so-called American dream. The idea of college, of owning a home, or for some people, the dream of having children. There are a lot of younger people today who feel the loss of those ideas. They don't feel possible. And we're just left to accept it as the new normal. All of these things are deaths without funerals. And because they don't come with official rituals, people often question them or minimize them, sometimes even feel contempt for them. And we do this to ourselves. We'll ask ourselves, why am I still stuck on this? Why can't I just move on? So it wasn't meant to be. Or my favorite from my childhood, we talk about this a lot, but just suck it up, buttercup, or you get what you get. You don't get upset. Move on. But the body knows, the body grieves. So many people are holding grief of so many kinds. In fact, in the book, The Body Keeps the Score, the author Bessel van der Kolk implies that ambiguous grief, a loss lacking closure such as dementia, addiction, missing person, keeps the body in a chronic, high alert stress hormone state. This invisible sorrow manifests as a profound physical exhaustion, chronic tension, and inflammation because the brain cannot process the loss. I don't even have this in my Spark, but I'm remembering now there was an article in the New York Times that I think set off my original fascination with this, because it was saying after the pandemic, we are culturally, collectively experiencing ambiguous loss, and we've got to actively try to process this in some way. So in essence, when the mind can't resolve the uncertainty of a loss, the body takes over the burden, leading to long-term physical and mental health consequences. Given that I think we all have, as I just said, the ambiguous loss since the pandemic and the various ways in which our government and our country is changing, we are all in a heap of trouble if we don't get some help and look at this. One of the reasons ambiguous loss is particularly painful is because it disrupts identity. When someone dies, as devastating as it is, we know the category of loss and we have a name for it. But when someone is both here and not here, or gone but psychologically alive in us, we ask ourselves, am I still a daughter if my mother no longer remembers me? Am I still the middle child if my sibling has opted out of the family? If this person adored me and then discarded me, was it even real? Can I call myself an artist if I had to pivot to other work? Who am I now that none of my dreams seem attainable? Not having answers to these kinds of questions can make us feel like we're going crazy. And it can keep us from making meaning out of the loss. And again, making meaning is how we metabolize grief. Psychologist Robert Niemeyer talks about grief not as letting go, but as reconstructing meaning. But how do you reconstruct meaning when the story hasn't clearly ended? Oftentimes we ruminate, we overthink, and we long for that closure. But Pauline Boss does not offer closure as the goal. In fact, she calls closure a myth in many situations. Instead, she suggests adaptation. Oh, Susan, this was like, again, here I am again. Listen to what she suggests. She suggests learning to live inside the ambiguity. It brought me back to the first spark I did this season about uncertainty. Why do all roads seem to lead to accepting uncertainty right now? It feels like this is the big lesson I keep getting pushed toward over and over again. Make friends with ambiguity, make friends with uncertainty.
Yeah.
But Pauline Boss outlines several ways to build resilience in ambiguous loss. Name the loss, normalize having mixed emotions, holding multiple emotions at the same time, release the need for certainty, reconstruct identity, revise attachment, and find meaning without closure. We'll get into those in a second, but notice the first one, name the loss. In that same talk by John Onwuchekwa, he quotes a trauma researcher who says, to survive trauma, one must be able to tell a story about it. Story, language, fluency, just back to this grief as a language idea. Here's a serious tip. If you're wanting to support someone who is experiencing loss of any kind, instead of saying, I'm sorry for your loss, he suggests asking, what was their name?
Yes.
Will you tell me a story about your love or about your hopes or about your dreams? Story brings the lost back into love. And when we tell the story, we begin to metabolize the ambiguity. We start to shape meaning. So, Susan, what do we make of it? If ambiguous loss is real, and if so many of us are carrying it quietly, what can we do? Let's look at those steps that Pauline Boss suggests.
Yeah.
So first, we name it. If you have a dream that has been sitting in your heart for years, if you have longed to create something but felt paralyzed, if you've been living in the tension between who you are and who you ache to be, there may be grief there. Not because something died, but because something inside you has been waiting. And the longer we don't name that loss, the more our nervous systems stay activated. So we name it. I am grieving the novel I haven't written. I am grieving the relationship I thought I would have. I am grieving the version of my career that never came to be. Naming it gives it edges and a boundary. Number 2, we normalize ambivalence and mixed feelings. You can love someone and know that you need to move on from them. You can want your dream fiercely and be terrified of it. Mixed feelings are all part of ambiguous loss. Number 3, we release the demand for certainty. You may not get answers. You may not get closure, a clean ending, or apology. You may not get the perfect conditions. You may never understand, but you can still live. You can still create. You can still reconstruct identity. And this is where I want to just gently pivot to something that feels very Sparkfile. Because one form of ambiguous grief that we see over and over again is the death of a creative dream that hasn't actually died. It's just suspended. It's not buried. It's hovering. And the longer it hovers, the more we live in limbo. Can I even call myself an artist, a writer, a creative? That is ambiguous grief.
Yes.
Dream is alive, but it's not being embodied.
Yes.
It feels like it's here and no longer here at the same time. Again, in those cases, our body responds as if something has died. This is why telling the story matters. All of this reminds me of the powerful quote by Ahime Ora. You got to resurrect the deep pain within you and give it a place to live that's not within your body. Let it live in art. Let it live in writing. Let it live in music. Let it be devoured by building brighter connections. Your body is not a coffin for pain to be buried in. Put it somewhere else. At the Spark File, we fully embrace this because when you tell the story of your stuckness, when you tell the story of your dream, when you tell the story of your fear, you find meaning even if you don't have a guaranteed outcome. Which brings me to the PS that Sam included in her email. Sam attached a letter from Hunter S. Thompson called "A Man Has to Be Something. He Has to Matter," which is an incredible letter if you've never read it. Sam quoted this line from Hunter S. Thompson: "Whether to float with the tide or to swim for a goal, that is a choice we must all make." Sam ended it with, "Me, I'm swimming." That is what adaptation looks like. Not closure, not certainty, but swimming for a goal. And I want to close with the final lines of Sam's letter because they humbled me and just made me feel so grateful. Sam said, "To me, this is who the Spark File is, the antidote to the ambiguous grief from the death of a dream. The two of you are creative doulas, saving one artist after the next from suffering the ambiguous grief of a creative dream they long to make real." Creative doulas, Suze, helping people birth the thing that has been suspended, helping people tell the story of what hurts and helping people name the loss.
It's awesome.
I'm really proud of that. And it is true. We will ask these questions. What is the name of your dream? Will you tell me a story about your love and about your fears? And in the telling, our clients become fluent. They swim toward a goal. And despite ambiguous grief, they create. And that, my friends, is my spark for today.
Laura, what a great spark. There's so much in it. I almost don't know what to say.
Do you feel like you've experienced ambiguous grief in the last, I mean, in your lifetime, I'm sure, but like last 5 years?
For sure.
In addition to like the real, like we both have experienced very concrete grief.
We've experienced grief, grief classique.
Yeah.
And I've also experienced ambiguous grief, which I was reflecting on as you were sharing. And those steps that you presented, some of it, I'm like, simple to say,
harder to do.
But the actual process, of embodying it is harder to do. Some of those steps are no joke.
I was struck by how much easier it is to do when you are surrounded by people who also know the language.
Yes.
Also fluent in the language.
Always.
Willing to ask the questions, listen to you, be present as a witness, and help you process through, support as you process through it.
Yeah.
It is essential, I think.
You made so many points, but one point that you made that I've given a lot of thought to is, what do we say to people who have experienced profound loss or are really going through it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of finger wagging and tisking online that I've seen and we've talked about on the podcast where people are like, "You're doing it wrong."
That's right.
If you say, "I'm so sorry for your loss, you're doing it wrong," I'm not down with that. I'm like, everybody's doing their best. But I have been seeking for myself other responses that feel authentic and maybe a little bit less cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And something that I've also arrived at independently that I've really utilized is, tell me about your person. Tell me about the person you lost.
That's right.
What did you love about them? And that is fun. That is fun. I know that sounds weird, but can really be fun.
I don't think it's weird at all, Suze, because I think that is the connection back to love and back to meaning. And so when you ask that question and the person responds with an outpouring of what it was that connected them deeply and meaningfully to this other human being.
Yeah.
And you're suddenly in a conversation not about death, but about love. I think it's everything.
Yeah. I also think about that Ehime Ora quote. And when I wasn't feeling well, I had a lot of blood drawn. And I had my blood drawn by this woman. And we just got to talking, as I am wont to do. And she shared with me that her partner had died in the prior year. And on her phone, she had all of this writing that she had put in a notes app on her phone about her partner.
Oh.
And she said something like, "You're fun to talk to. What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a creative doula, essentially." I help people identify and accomplish their creative goals. And she said, "Well, you make things. Do you want to make something out of this?" And she shook her phone at me and I said, "That's for you to make something out of."
Yes, yes.
And I sort of hearkened back to that Ehime Ora quote. I was like, here's what I know. Your pain is not meant to live inside your body. You can put it into your writing. You can put it into something beautiful. And that writing can be songs. It could be stories or a story about this person that you loved and lost. And those stories could be just for you. They could be for you and the child that the two of you made together. They could be for the world. They can be for whoever you want them to be for.
But most importantly, they are now outside of you and not living inside of you.
Amen. Yeah. And so this spark is so densely packed with goodness. There's so much to reflect on in this spark. One thing that I do know is I don't think I'm making up a false story when I say we are all, if we're lucky enough to live long enough, we are all going to come face to face with grief classique, and ambiguous grief. And so it's great to have information and a little bit of a game plan. So whether that grief is about what we want to make before we're done, but we feel like we're never going to make it, and about getting that up and out of your body, or just about the feelings of ambiguous loss, getting that up and out of your body. Yeah. I just feel like this is super duper helpful.
Thank you, Suze. I hope so.
Thank you, Laura.
I really do. I think, if we all can support each other in first of all, understanding we're not crazy. You're not crazy. It is what you are grieving is important to grieve, and let's not try to minimize it or put it aside and think I should be over this by now, whatever it is, and find ways to make meaning.
Laura, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
I guess that's it. This episode of The Spark File was made on the lands of the Lenape and the Mohican people. And as always, we hope this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Listen to us. If there's a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you'd like to learn more about how to coach with us to identify and accomplish your creative goals so that you can avoid the feelings of regret and ambiguous grief that may haunt you, you can email us at getcreative@thesparkfile.com or reach us through our website, thesparkfile.com.
Hey, we'll even happily take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you have to share a creative risk that you have taken recently.
You can follow us on social at The Spark File, and be sure to subscribe and rate and 5-star review this podcast. It really does help other listeners to find us. Also, if you like this podcast, we really do hope you'll share it with the people that you love, people that you think could benefit from it. And if you didn't like it, we're sorry to see you go. We shall grieve the loss, but not ambiguously. Bye-bye.
If something lights you up and gets your creative sparks flying, we're writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take that spark and fan it into a flame.
You know, you got to take it and
Make it.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I wanna make or how I wanna be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, this is Carrie Butler. Welcome to Breaking Broadway, an insider's guide to making it on Broadway. I get to meet a lot of aspiring performers at the stage door and through social media, and their biggest question is, how do I make it on Broadway? Well, lean in. I am going to give you the answer. There is no one answer. Everyone's journey is different. It's not something I can answer in one DM, and that is why I started this podcast. I'm going to give you tips from all different kinds of professionals, insider tips to help you find your way. So put on your dance belts, people. Here we go.